Buchmesse 2007, die Faszination Comics. Wir berichten live vom Event des Jahres.
So, es geht los, 11 Uhr. Bevor diese illustre Runde jetzt sehr Profundes zum Thema Chat und Titeuf und Scheibchenweise sagen kann, von mir ein kleiner Hinweis. Chat signiert anschließend 2 Stunden hier am Signiertisch. Es gibt dafür Nummern. Sprich, die Leute, die jetzt hier sitzen, also ihr, bekommt nachher eine Nummer, sofern ihr sie wollt. Mit der werdet ihr hinten dann ganz vornehm vorne hingestellt und könnt eure Signatur, eure Zeichnung abholen. Das heißt also, die Leute, die hier sitzen, die jetzt zuhören, haben diesen Vorteil, sie sollen natürlich auch zuhören, wenn im Gespräch. Und am Ende, Andreas, du musst es nochmal sagen am Ende, dass hinten signiert wird und dann verteilen wir die Nummern. Ja? Also wie gesagt, am Ende der Veranstaltung 50 Stück gibt es und dann könnt ihr euch hinten zum Signieren begeben. Und ich wünsche euch viel Spaß.
Ja, einen wunderschönen guten Tag auf der Frankfurter Buchmesse im Comiczentrum. Wir wollen uns heute hier auf dem Podium unterhalten über die Comicserie Titeuf. Ich begrüße ganz herzlich Philippe Chapuis, besser bekannt als Sepp, den Zeichner und Erfinder von Titeuf, und rechts neben ihm Anne Berling vom Carlsen Verlag, dem wir also seit vielen Jahren die deutsche Ausgabe dieses unglaublich witzigen und tollen Comics verdanken. Ich möchte zu Anfang ein paar Worte zur Einführung sagen und wir werden das Gespräch dann auf Englisch führen. Ich glaube oder ich hoffe, das ist kein Problem, aber Sepp spricht eigentlich Französisch. Ich glaube, Französisch wäre es ein bisschen komplizierter. Ich glaube, mit Englisch werden wir leben können. Sepp ist 1968 in Genf geboren und hatte, wie viele Kinder es haben, einen Kindheitstraum. Er wollte nämlich Rockstar werden. Wie wir heute wissen, ist er das nicht geworden, sondern ein Comic-Star. Und er hat bereits im Alter von 7 Jahren angefangen, Comics zu zeichnen. Das machen ja viele Kinder, aber dann hört das in der Regel auch wieder auf. Bei Sepp war es anders. Er hat weitergezeichnet. Er hat im Alter von 12 Jahren ein Magazin veröffentlicht in der Schweiz, das hieß Sepp, und der Titel dieses Magazins ist also heute sein Künstlername, unter dem er international bekannt geworden ist. Er hat dann in Genf die École des Arts Décoratifs besucht und mit 18 bereits für das renommierte belgische Comic-Magazin Spirou Comics gezeichnet. 1993 gelang ihm ein wahrer Glücksstreich, denn er zeichnete eine Serie für ein lokales Magazin in Genf, und das war die Serie Titeuf. Die fiel in Frankreich einem großen Verlag, dem Verlag Lénard, in die Hände, und noch im gleichen Jahr erschien das erste Album. Und innerhalb weniger Jahre entwickelte sich Titeuf zu einem wahren Bestseller. In Frankreich werden sage und schreibe, man höre und staune, 2 Millionen Exemplare pro Band verkauft. Das ist also ein gigantischer Erfolg. Und die deutschen Alben erscheinen, wie ich schon sagte, im Carlsen Verlag. 1996, also 3 Jahre nach dem ersten Album, wurde auf dem internationalen Comic-Salon in Angoulême Sepp ausgezeichnet mit dem Prix Alpha-Art Jeunesse. Das ist ein sehr besonderer Preis. In dieser Kategorie Jeunesse, da besteht die Jury aus Kindern und Jugendlichen. Das heißt nicht aus irgendwelchen Kritikern, die sagen, also das ist jetzt künstlerisch toll und das ist literarisch anspruchsvoll, sondern es waren die Leser selber, die ihre Lieblingsserie gewählt haben. Und darum finde ich also diesen Preis wirklich sehr, sehr interessant und sehr verdient, wie wir, glaube ich, nachher anhand von ein paar Bildbeispielen auch sehen werden. Ein paar Jahre später, 2004, bekam er ebenfalls in Angoulême den großen Preis der Stadt Angoulême. Das ist so ziemlich die höchste Comic-Auszeichnung, die man in Europa bekommen kann. In Deutschland liegen bis jetzt 11 Alben vor mit den Abenteuern von Titeuf, und angesichts des Jubiläums 40 Jahre Carlsen Comics ist auch gerade ein wunderschöner Sammelband erschienen mit fast 100 Seiten, der eine Auswahl der tollsten und witzigsten Geschichten enthält. Und diese Auswahl hat auch Sepp selbst getroffen. Ganz frisch und ganz neu ist, ich darf es mal hochhalten, das Album Scheibchenweise. der französische Titel Découpé en tranches. Eine Geschichte, die sicherlich diejenigen, die mit Titeuf vertraut sind, überraschen wird. Es ist nämlich ein sehr, sehr persönliches Album, was selbst Biografie schildert in verschiedenen Episoden und wie er so groß wurde und was es für Probleme gab und was er damals für Träume hatte und was aus diesen Träumen geworden ist. Und das ist eine wirklich wunderbare Lektüre eigentlich, um die Serie Titeuf noch mal ein bisschen mit zum Hintergrund auch zu sehen, denn also das werden wir sicherlich jetzt im Gespräch auch klären. Bei der Schilderung von dem Titeuf oder die Schilderung von Titeuf speise sich natürlich auch sehr aus selbst Kindheitserinnerungen und Erlebnissen und natürlich aus seinen Beobachtungen. Okay, welcome to the Frankfurt Book Fair. Okay. Is it the first time you're in Frankfurt at the book fair?
First time at the book fair,
yeah. It's a tremendous, huge occasion, isn't it? A lot of people, and it's the largest book fair in the world, and especially when it's open for the public today and tomorrow. It's very crowded, which I think gives us hope in the digital times that people are still interested in books and in comics.
Yeah. I hope so.
I would like to start with a compliment, because of course when a new Titeuf is published, I'm reading it. I'm reading a lot of things, of course, and by preparing our today's meeting, I was reading all the albums in one row. And when you do something like that, of course, there's always a risk that after a while it's getting a bit boring, even if you read Gaston or the great masterpieces. You know it, and okay, then there's another album. And I must say it was very different with Titeuf, because when I was finishing the last album, I was laughing as much as when I started with the first one. So compliments, and thank you very much for this very nice and charming and beautiful comic you have given us. I have just introduced you in German, and was telling that when you were a child, you had a dream to get a rock star one day. What kind of music was your favorite music, and what kind of music were you dreaming to make one day?
When I was a child, I wanted to be a comic artist before, but when I was 11 and 12, I listened to a lot of rock and roll music, and my idol was Led Zeppelin, so that's the reason of my name Zepp. Because I make a short magazine, fanzine, about this group, and the fanzine was called Zepp. And after 1 year making that, all my friends in the school called me Zepp. So that's why I have this ridiculous name.
But you don't have to pay royalties to Led Zeppelin for your name.
No, not yet. I hope it will go longer like that.
That's good. What kind of comics did you like when you was a kid, and what kind of comics were you doing?
The first comics I read, I think it was Popeye by Segar and Lucky Luke. And I have a lot of comics because in my family everybody read comics, but popular comics, mainstream comics like Asterix, Lucky Luke, and I used my day to copy what I saw, because I didn't read. I was, I think, 4 years old, and I have comics and I have papers, so I tried to make the same. And in my head, or in my child spirit, I thought that I was copying exactly the same way. So I picture like blueberries, and it was patats, and but in my mind I thought, I designed the same as Lucky Luke or as Blueberry. I thought I was a great artist, but I was 4 years old.
But But you continued, and when I was introducing you, I was saying that a lot of people, when they are young, are starting to draw their own comics. I did it by myself, and the world still has to be very thankful that I stopped one day. But you continued, and in the age of 18, which was still very young, you published your first comics in Spirou magazine.
Yeah.
What kind of comics were that?
It was a character called Victor, and Victor was a printer, is that right? Printer. But it was just my I just want to make comics, so I designed this character who has no very much personality, but I wanted to be a comics maker in Spirou. So it was like a dream to me to be in Spirou, because that was the magazine where was Franquin, Maurice, Yann and Conrad, all these people for me who make comics story. But when I arrived in Spirou, they were all gone, and all these big legends of comics were not here anymore. So it was not a magazine very interesting to work with, because it lived in the past, and it was very looking at the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, because it was the time of glory for the magazine. But in the 80s, it was like a dead magazine.
And after a while, you started Titeuf for a Swiss magazine first, and then it was discovered by the French publisher Glénat, who did it in albums. And now it's one of the greatest comic successes in Europe. And we have the cover of the album number 0 with the very early stories. Were that the stories which were published in the Swiss magazine inside this album number 0?
About, I think, 10 or 12 pages. And the Swiss magazine dies.
Okay.
That's longer. That's why this album is in black and white, because the Swiss magazine is published only in black and white. And when I made this first album with Glénat was an adult publisher. He didn't make any comics for children. So it was very comfortable for me, because he has no censure. I don't know the
censorship.
Yeah,
censorship. Yeah,
because the editor thought it's comics for adults, so we can talk about everything and have no problem with that. So it was very comfortable for me. But when the book has its first issue, many libraries didn't want to take it, because they thought the cover was too sexy. So we have a small difference.
It's a very beautiful cover, and I think it tells a lot about what the series is about. And it's got a huge bestseller, 2 million copies sold now with every new album. Were you surprised by this?
Yeah, of course. I really wanted to have a lot of readers, because it's the sense for an author to be read by a lot of people, but I didn't think that it was possible to have so much readers, and so many difference, because very small children are reading Titeuf, and very old people too. So it's unusual, and I'm very lucky with that.
Before we continue, I think we will have a look at one of the episodes, and Anna and I will read the dialogues for you.
Ich mache aber nur einmal. Papa, wer hat die Luft erfunden?
Was? Die Luft? Das verstehst du erst, wenn du größer bist.
Was ist eine Abtreibung?
Das lernst du, wenn du älter bist. So. Wie man AIDS bekommt, also das wirst du später erfahren.
Warum hat Gott die Schuhe erfunden?
Um das zu verstehen, bist du noch zu klein.
Warum kannst du deine Zähne rausnehmen, Omi?
Was? Das verstehst du später. Später.
Was ist eigentlich eine Hure?
Das wirst du später erfahren, Titeuf.
Was ist ein Sadomaso?
Das weißt du, wenn du mal groß bist.
Wieso hast du deine Prostata, Opa?
Das erfährst du noch früh genug.
Wie wird man Rentner, Papa?
Da warte noch ein paar Jahre.
Was ist eine Erektion?
Das erfährst du schon noch.
Wie schnell fährt ein ECE?
Naja, der fährt so, bist noch ein bisschen jung.
Wir müssen noch weiter zur Schule gehen heute.
Well, a very nice episode with which the first album was a number 1, not with a number 0 starts, and I think it gives a very good outline about the subject you're talking about. And normally comics have heroes. They are the American superheroes who have superpowers. You have heroes like Tintin or Spirou who are very clever and solve mysteries. And your subject is that you have a character who has a lot of questions but no answers. It's a boy from next door, and life is just a question for him. He's not telling the readers something about the world, he's asking questions which the readers are asking. And that is what is continuing through the whole series. And that is quite unusual for a comic hero, isn't it?
Yeah, that's because life is questions for me too. So some of these questions are still have no response for me, because some of them yes, okay, but not everything. And when I was working in Spirou, one day I make a story about it was before Titeuf with my ancient character Victor. I made a story about unemployment, and the magazine refused it because they say we don't want to publish something about a sad subject. And I think the best way to love, and we need to love because there are a lot of sad subjects and a lot of anxious, okay. So I wanted to talk about the real subject. I think when you are children, you're not only speaking about movies, about I don't know, jokes, but also about death, about God, about sexuality, about all the questions, all the things you don't understand, and all the things that the adults don't want to explain you, and they say you will understand later. So that's the main line of Titeuf.
Titeuf is a typical boy from next door. When you are going to, for instance, to comic festivals like Angoulême, or have signing in bookstores, I mean, you will have a signing after our discussion here. What is your observation? What are your readers? Is it the kids who find themselves in Titeuf, or is it also older people, grown-up people, parents who find their memory about their childhood in Titeuf?
First, there were no children, only adults, and adults told me that they remember their childhood when they read Titeuf. Some of them have forgotten it, and me also, I forgot my childhood, and I remember about it when I made Titeuf, but it's too away. And Titeuf is just before, it's a young teenager, I don't know, I think adolescent. Adolescence is just before his body will change. It's just before sexuality. He only has questions, but he don't know what does it mean. What means sex? What means desire? Why the girls are so strange? And many adults, many readers, when they come in the signature, told me I remember I have the same story, but I completely forget it. And after 2 or 3 books, I began to have a lot of children, and so the children come and they told me it's like me. I have the same story. I have the same story with my parents. They don't understand me. They don't want to answer, and I have a lot of story like Titeuf. And I think Titeuf is I don't know to say rassurant. Sorry. Make them quiet, because they see a child who knows less than them. Titeuf knows very small things. You have no answer for. You have only questions, and I think the children of today have more questions than Titeuf. So it's good to them to see, there is someone who is more lost than me, and I think that's what they say the most when they come to the signature.
I was wondering, when I was reading all the albums in the chronological order, you started the series 14 years ago. That was a time before the internet was big. And when you look around today, you see kids 12 years old, 14 years old, and they all have seen pornographic movies in the internet already. Is it also a reason for the success that some of the kids sometimes might feel a little bit more clever than Titeuf sometimes is, that they have more answers than Titeuf really has?
I think they see more things that we could, but I don't think that they have more answers. They have seen more things, but they have also more questions, because they can see things that we never could see. So, and the questions are not from a generation, they are from all times. It's a question about what will I become? What will arrive to me when my body will change? Why the girls are so strange, and for the girls, why the boys are so strange? It's and why my parents are so weird. They have a strange answer to my questions. And I think this is the same since centuries. It's no for the 20th century. It's the same for the people who are 80 years old. They remember that when they were a child, it was the same. They didn't have internet, they didn't have magazines, but the feelings, I think, were the same.
Well, we have talking a lot about the subject of sex and sexuality already. I think it's time to have a look at an example.
Ich bin...
Oh, Titeuf, schon da? So eine Überraschung.
Was macht ihr denn da?
Gymnastik, um fit zu bleiben. 1, 2, hepp, hepp.
Gymnastik? Nackt?
Jawohl, nackt, da. Sonst wird's uns zu warm. Gut beobachtet, Titeuf. Gymnastik nackt. Und so, und weiter geht's. Hopp, hopp, hoch die Beine. Das hält fit. So kommt man in Schwung. Das ist gesund. Hopp, 1, 2.
Okay.
Und macht Muskeln. Hopp, hopp.
Also jetzt bin ich aber platt. Wusstest du, dass diese Nackten in den Filmen gar nicht Liebe machen, sondern Gymnastik?
Ist ja ein Ding. I think getting up, we spoke about comic heroes before, that they are heroes and they are clever and smart, and Titeuf is quite different, and I think the subject of getting up, growing up, discovering sexuality is something which comics had forgotten a long time, especially in France. People for many years were talking about comic art, comic as a literature, and comics were in museums, and they forgot about the young readers. And when we look at the manga hype, for instance, which is happening all over Europe, I think that gives an explanation, because mangas are dealing with all those subjects, but European comics had forgotten about it. There was a series Petit Spirou, Der kleine Spirou, where this took place, and it's Titeuf where it took place. And of course, when you start something new which is unusual, sometimes people are shocked. I mean, it's a series which is aimed for children, and you are discussing very openly sexuality. You show the parents naked, making sports to stay fit. And were there any reactions?
Yeah, there were in many libraries. People didn't want to take my books in the beginning in France, and there are still small places in Switzerland or in France that they don't want to publish it. But poor people. But I don't think this is very important. It's more funny for me.
I was very amazed when I was rereading your albums that there was one sequence where you even showed an erection. I mean, in a very discreet way, but it was there. And are you sometimes testing out what you can do and what is possible?
When I write my stories, I always try to be like if I was Titeuf myself. So even my posture changed, so I am like that, and if it makes me laugh, I think it's okay. And I think always that it's Titeuf who is speaking. So there's no taboo for Titeuf, because he's a child. He don't have to have any taboos. And after I show my pages to my editor, and I think he never cut anyone. But in the translation, sometimes we have trouble in the China versions. So this page we saw before was was cut.
Really?
Yeah. And sometimes they put it's difficult to explain in English, but.
Also ich erkläre das jetzt kurz in Deutsch, was er in Französisch gesagt hat. Also er sagt, dass in China gab es schon eine weitere Szene, wo Titeuf wieder seine Eltern erwischt, beim Sex natürlich. Und diesmal war es so, dass die Frau, also seine Mutter, auf seinem Vater saß. Und in China haben man dann das Panel einfach gedreht, damit die Reaktion, damit die Mutter wieder unten ist. Und ansonsten wäre es nicht rausgekommen.
Andere Länder, andere Sitten. What I like very much about your strip is that you are picking up the questions which young people have, but you are not at all educational. You are picking up the questions, so the readers realize they are not alone with what they don't know, but you don't give explanations. Is that a specific goal you have?
Yeah, that's because when I write, I have no explanation for that. Because I write like a child, so I'm like Titeuf. I don't know the answers. And I think when you're writing for children, it's very dangerous to act like an adult who knows and who will teach the children. It's like if you're a teacher, like if you do books for school, and that's not my. That's not my way. I don't want to do that. So I prefer to relay the questions, and most of these questions have no answers because Titeuf is also answering about questioning about death, about God, about society, about unemployment, about money, and we don't have really serious answers for these questions. So it's better to just to talk about, but we are only human beings, so we don't have answer for everything.
What I don't know is, do you have your own children?
Sorry?
Do you have your own children? Do you have kids?
Okay, yeah. I have 3 children now. So no, I am a parent myself. So
okay.
I know that most of the times when we are parents, we feel that our children are younger than they really are. So when I try to explain to answer to their question, sometimes I speak to them like if they were small babies, and they say, "Hey, Papa, I'm not a baby. You can talk. You can use normal words."
And are your children and the children of friends and neighbors, are they inspiring sometimes, stories you are drawing?
Yes. But the most part of the inspiration is my own childhood and this special state when I write. When I write, I keep like a bridge between my age now and my childhood, and it's something special that I can't really explain, even in English. I can really explain, but I feel like a child when I write Titeuf, but only when I write Titeuf.
When you compare your childhood with our times today, I remember when I was young, I never got a sexual education. There were modern parents who explained their kids a little bit about the bees, doing something together, and I think it's quite different today. Do you see a change there, how kids grew up today with those questions compared with your childhood?
Yeah, they got more information, but I think when you're 10 years old, you can have as much information as you can, but there are something you could not understand before you will try yourself. So some of this subject will stay mystery. You have to wait. You have to wait to have but you have a lot of questions because it's anxious. You need to have things to be less anxious. So that's.
Quite early in the series, a girl shows up, Nadja. The German name is Tanja, and well, there's something going on between Titeuf and her, but you are never developing it for the first albums into what can I say, a storyline or something which is continuing and developing. Why did you stay at this level where it's just a girl and she appears sometimes and nothing serious is really happening between them? I don't mean the very serious things, but
because I think that the worst thing that could happen to Titeuf is to have a real love story with Nadia, because he don't have anything to do with her. He prefer to stay with his friends and to play with boys. Girls are so weird, so mysterious. He don't understand. So he's in love. He really want to. He can say to his friends, she's my girlfriend. I will marry her later, but it's not possible to have more, though, because it's completely angry about girls.
But you are focusing on her in the album Nadja se Marie. Tanja heiratet ist der deutsche Titel. It's the first album where you made an album-long story. Before you did one-page episodes. And was that a new experience to make a complete album story?
Yeah, this is because it was the 10th album in France, so it was like an anniversary, and for a long time readers asked me about a long story, so I tried to once, but I really prefer the short stories, because I can change every day and I can talk about things very easy, light, and think more dangerous, or I don't know to say, but serious. So it's more like me. I prefer this way of working.
I realized that there are very few other characters which are appearing quite often. There's the guy with thick glasses, and the big one with red pullover. But you're mainly focusing on Titeuf. It seems that you are able to tell gags, a lot of gags. I mean, it's around 500 stories you made in the meantime, without needing side characters. It's very interesting, I think.
I didn't think I could do that. When I began Titeuf, I thought I will make 10 or 20 stories, but not more. And I'm surprised myself. I can continue, but for every book, when I begin, it's difficult to find new stories. And after, I found the relationship with Titeuf, and it's okay. But it's difficult because I don't have any baseline, any Bible to write stories about Titeuf, and I think that Titeuf is getting older with me. I cannot tell stories like I told in the first book, but I can tell new stories now that I was unable to do when I did the first book, and I hope that every book is different, so I don't know if I can do that all my life, but now it's like that. And I don't care about subjects, or I write and I try to be Titeuf, and things comes or not, but now they still come, so
I think we have a look at another story.
Vorsicht, Struppi, da ist der Yeti, der Chang entführt hat. Früher habe ich mit meinen Freunden gerne Comics nachgespielt. Sorry. Na warte, Rastopoulos, du machst mir keine Angst, du Bösewicht. Tim und Struppi, Captain Haddock, 100.000 Höllenhuren.
Schneller als mein Schatten.
Das ist ungerecht. Deiner ist viel größer.
Beim Teutates, die Spinnen...
Bei Teutates, die spinnen die Römer.
Warum sind immer wir die Dummen als Maulrömer? Banzai, Ninja Salto, jo,
Nicht, im Comic klappt's immer. Jeder großer Schlumpf, Sarah Papil,
die wird uns immer gut schlumpfen. Spinnst du?
ich schlumpfe sie, ist doch bloß süßer Klee, du Schwachmat.
Nur süßer Klee? Ha, 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 ha.
Aber ich habe damit aufgehört.
Ha, 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 das Marsupilami.
Hört man.
There's another story which I like very much when Titeuf is sitting in school drawing Lucky Luke, and you can really feel that as a reader that you love comics, and I think that makes is one reason for the very nice quality, the charming atmosphere of your story. And Titeuf is in fact, he's a character without a character. He does not know many things, has a lot of questions, and one of his basic trademarks is his yellow lock he has. Is that an homage to Hergé's Tintin, who also has a little lock, but quite shorter, of course?
Yes, it's a sort of Tintin. And when I began Titeuf, I thought that the worst thing in drawing comics is to draw the hair, because it's very long and very boring to do always the hair. So I try to find for every character a trick to avoid drawing the hair. So that's why he has this special.
You are writing and drawing the stories. Are you working completely alone, or do you have some help for, let's say, the colorings, or how do you work?
No, I work alone because I need to be like in a bubble when I work with Titeuf. But a lot of children send me stories and stories they draw themselves with Titeuf, but I can use that because I need that Titeuf must have his own stories, but it's funny to see all these things.
Well, you're drawing Titeuf since 14 years already. He's more or less the same. There are very few comics where the characters are getting older. One very famous example from America is the strip Gasoline Alley by Frank King. It started in the 1920s, and the main character, Walt Wallet, with whom it started, is now in the 80s. His wife has died in the meantime. His children have children in the meantime, who are the main characters. Are you maybe planning one day something else with Titeuf, or will you? I mean, his mother is getting pregnant at a certain moment, and is getting a child. So that is a little change, and of course the child has to grow up. How are you working with time?
No, I think Titeuf will not grow up, because if he would, if he has just 1 or 2 years more, he will become a teenager and only think about girls, and all this subject of question will disappear. So I need to keep him in this place just before the big change.
But of course that means when somebody started to read Titeuf when he was 10, he's 24 by now. So your audience is changing, but of course you will always have new readers discovering Titeuf.
Yeah, I can't think about that. That's me. I'm growing old too, so maybe people will continue to read Titeuf. Some won't. I don't know. I don't really care about that, because I can think about that. I must do my stories, and maybe if I have readers, I'm lucky. If I have not, I'm unlucky. But I have no metrics about that.
Okay, I think we show one last strip.
Der Berufsberater.
Und du? Was willst du denn so mal werden, wenn du mal groß bist?
Ich kann nicht einfach klein bleiben.
Are kids living in a better world than we grown-up people with more questions but less problems?
No, I think it's not a better world because it's a very cool world when you're a child. But it's also anxious to growing up. So I think that's one of the reasons that I need to draw about my childhood, because I think it's like kind of paradise, because everything was possible and you have big dreams, and when you grow up you lose a lot of dreams. So I try to keep my dreams, being an adult with dreams of child.
We just have in the background the cover of your new album. I have to make you another compliment. It's a very charming album where you memorize a lot of moments of your childhood. For instance, you have a kind of before and after story where you say, well, when we were young we were dreaming of love and free love, now we have AIDS. When we were young we were dreaming of technical progress, now we have pollution. Is that a feeling in your life that you had a lot of dreams and by getting up you got a little bit disappointed by reality?
Yes, sometimes I feel disappointed about being an adult, because I remember when I was a child, all my friends want to do wonderful things when they will be adults. They want to be like astronauts or rock stars or playing in the movies, and now they lose that, they forget it, and I think that's a little bit sad. Because so this story was about like melancholy, about childhood and the big dreams we have when we are a child, and all the lies that the adults told us when we were a child. So this album is more about feelings, about emotions. I try to make pictures about my emotions.
But in one case, I think you made a different experience, because you once started to draw comics, just to draw comics, and you created an international bestseller. So at least that worked out in a different way, in a very positive way, and congratulations for that. Thanks a lot for all the comics you gave us, and a lot of success also in the future. Thank you very much for this nice discussion. So, im Anschluss an dieses Gespräch gibt es jetzt eine Signierstunde mit Sepp und die große Gelegenheit, einfach hier in Deutschland, in Frankfurt, sich seine Alben direkt signieren zu lassen. Schönen Tag noch. Ach, und es ist... Und ihr braucht eine Nummer...